Moving out on her own was supposed to be a fresh start, but the moment Olivia stepped into her new rental house, she felt something was off. The air inside was unnaturally still, and at night she heard faint, rhythmic breathing. At first, she thought it was just an overactive imagination, but then she found the tiny holes in the air vents. And when she looked inside, something was looking back. Olivia, a 21-year-old college student, had just moved into a small rental house near campus. The place wasn't fancy, but it was cheap, and after years of sharing a dorm, she finally had a space to herself. The landlord, Mr. Grayson, was an older man, quiet with a strange, lingering stare, but she brushed it off. Her first night alone was uneventful, aside from the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. But then, as she lay in bed, drifting into sleep, she heard it. Deep, steady breathing. She held her breath, listening. It wasn't coming from outside. It wasn't coming from the walls. It was inside. The sound was faint but unmistakable, like someone trying not to be heard. She turned on the light and scanned the room. Nothing. The vents rattled slightly as air flowed through them, but there was no one there. Convinced she was just being paranoid, she went back to sleep. But the breathing continued. Days passed, and Olivia began noticing strange things. Small items, her keys, her phone charger, would be in places she didn't remember leaving them. The air in certain rooms felt colder than others, and every night without fail she heard the breathing. One evening, after returning from a late-night study session, she collapsed onto her bed. She glanced at the air vent near the ceiling, and her stomach twisted. There were holes. Tiny, deliberately drilled holes in the vent cover. A shiver ran down her spine. She stood on a chair, heart pounding, and held her phone flashlight up to the vent. At first, she saw nothing. Then, movement. Her breath hitched. Something in the darkness shifted, a glint of moisture reflecting the light. And then, she saw them, a pair of eyes, wide, unblinking, watching her. She stumbled back, nearly falling off the chair. The flashlight trembled in her grip. When she looked again, the eyes were gone. Her mind raced. Was it an illusion? Was she losing it? No. Someone was up there. She grabbed a broomstick and jabbed it at the vent. Nothing. The only sound was the hum of the heater kicking on. Shaken but unwilling to believe the worst, she told herself it had to be a trick of the light. Maybe a rat, maybe dust particles catching the glow. But deep down, she knew better. The next morning, Olivia called Mr. Grayson. "There's something weird with the vents," she said. "I think someone might be up there." A pause. Then in a slow, measured voice, he said, "That's impossible. I swear, I saw... You're imagining things. This house is old. It creaks, it settles, nothing more." His voice was calm, but there was something in his tone, something almost rehearsed. Still, what could she do? Call the cops and tell them she thought someone was in her vents? She had no proof, so she let it go. But that night, the breathing was louder. Sleep was impossible. Every time Olivia closed her eyes, she imagined those eyes watching her. The breathing grew bolder, less restrained. It wasn't hiding anymore. Then she heard a click. Not from the vents, from her closet door. Slowly, she turned her head toward it. The door was slightly open. Had it been like that before? Her pulse pounded. She grabbed her phone, hands shaking, and turned on the flashlight. She stepped toward the closet, heart hammering against her ribs. She pulled the door open in one swift motion. Nothing. Just hanging clothes and her shoes neatly lined up. Then she saw it. The air vent inside the closet. A large, square vent without a cover. The hole was big enough for someone to crawl through. Her stomach dropped. Something had been in her room, and it had left through the vent. Olivia barely slept. The next morning, she called the landlord again, demanding an inspection. He reluctantly agreed to come by. But when he arrived, his expression was eerily blank. He didn't seem surprised when she pointed out the vent. "I told you," he said. "You're imagining things." She glared at him. "Then why is the vent cover missing?" He just shrugged. Maybe it fell off. His indifference was infuriating. She resolved to take matters into her own hands. That night, she bolted her bedroom door and set up her phone to record the vent. Hours passed. The recording caught nothing until 3:47 a.m. The closet door creaked open. A thin, bony hand emerged from the vent. Then another. A figure slithered out. The video ended there. Because Olivia had woken up and the figure had been standing at the foot of her bed, she screamed. Olivia's scream sent the figure retreating, back into the vent. She grabbed her phone and ran. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the house, prying open the vent, and inside they found something chilling, a makeshift living space, dirty blankets, food wrappers, a notebook filled with disturbing scribbles, and at the bottom of the vent shaft, a hatch leading to a hidden a crawl space that connected to the basement. The landlord was forced to talk. He admitted that the previous tenant had never actually moved out. He had lived inside the walls, watching, waiting for the perfect moment. The police caught him days later, hiding in another rental property, a frail, malnourished man with sunken eyes and cracked lips. His reason for staying? I liked watching her sleep. Olivia never returned to that house, but sometimes when she closes her eyes, she still hears the breathing and wonders, what if she had never noticed the vents? I was home alone when my brother called me, his voice trembling. "Hey, is your webcam turning on by itself?" I glanced at my laptop, confused. "No, why?" There was silence on the line. Then he whispered, "Because I just saw you standing behind me." It was a stormy Friday night and I was enjoying my time alone. My brother Aaron had left for the weekend, leaving me with the entire house to myself. I was halfway through a horror movie, my apartment dimly lit by the glow of my laptop screen, when my phone buzzed. "Aaron," I answered, expecting a casual chat, but his voice was strained. "Dude, I need you to check something." I sat up. "What's wrong?" "My webcam keeps turning on by itself. I was in a meeting earlier and it happened twice. Just check yours real quick." I frowned. "That's weird." Glancing at my desk in the other room, I could barely make out the silhouette of my laptop from where I sat. The webcam light was off. "Nah, mine's fine," I told him. There was a long silence. Then, Aaron's voice dropped to a whisper. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, why?" "Because I just saw you." My blood turned to ice. "Saw me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I was on a video call with my friend, and he asked if someone else was home with me. I turned to look, and I swear I saw someone standing behind me. He looked just like you." A cold shiver crawled up my spine. "That's not funny," I muttered. "I'm not joking." I stood up, peering into the dark hallway leading to my office. I was alone. My mind raced for a rational explanation, but the feeling in my gut told me otherwise. Then, something made me freeze in place. From the hallway, I heard my own voice, whispering my name. At first, I thought it was the wind, maybe the TV, maybe something rational, but then it came again. My name, spoken in my own voice, coming from the darkness of the hallway. I turned off the TV, straining my ears. Silence. Maybe I was hearing things. I took a deep breath and shook off the unease. "I think I'm just on edge, Aaron. Maybe you are too." "Maybe," he said, though he didn't sound convinced. "Just keep your webcam covered tonight." We hung up, and I sat in silence, staring at my dark hallway. Then, just to prove to myself I was being ridiculous, I got up and walked toward my office. That's when the sound came again. Right behind me. "Daniel." I spun around so fast I nearly tripped. My own voice had whispered my name, so close I should have felt breath on my neck. But no one was there. I flicked on every light in the apartment. My heart pounded, my skin cold with sweat. But nothing was out of place. No one else was there. I forced a laugh, trying to shake off the fear. Okay, I'm officially losing it. Then my laptop screen flickered. My webcam had turned on. A cold dread spread through me as I stepped into the office. The small green light of my webcam glowed steadily. I reached out, hesitating, then clicked on the webcam feed, and my blood ran cold. On the screen, I saw the live feed of my room, the desk, the chair, the hallway behind me. But there was something else. Someone stood in the hallway. Someone who looked exactly like me. He was standing deathly still, half-shadowed in the doorway, his eyes locked onto the camera. His face was my face. I was sitting in the chair, but I was also standing in the hallway. Then he grinned, a slow, unnatural smile that didn't belong on my face. And then the screen glitched. The figure was gone. The webcam light shut off. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. The room was silent, but I swear I could still feel eyes on me, watching, waiting. I bolted out of the office, slamming the door shut. My hands shook as I dialed Aaron. Pick up, pick up." The call connected. "Aaron, something's wrong." His voice was distant. "What do you mean?" "There was something on my webcam. It looked like me, but it wasn't me." Silence, then a whisper. "Daniel." My breath caught in my throat. That wasn't Aaron's voice, that was mine. I stared at my phone in horror. The call was still connected, but I wasn't speaking. Then the whisper came again, this time from my bedroom. "Daniel, come here." I dropped the phone and ran. I didn't stop running until I was outside, like panting in the cold night air. I stared up at the windows of my apartment, expecting to see movement inside. Then, a figure stepped into view. My face, smiling down at me. The lights in the apartment flickered, and in the brief darkness, I heard my own voice whisper, "You can't run from yourself." Aaron arrived an hour later. I refused to go back inside until he did. We searched the entire apartment. Nothing was out of place. No one was there. Except my webcam was still on. The light was glowing. When I checked the feed, it was just my empty room. I tried to laugh it off, pretend it was all some bizarre trick of my mind, but deep down I knew the truth. I knew something had copied me. Something had worn my face. And that night, as I tried to sleep, I heard it again. A whisper from the dark corner of my room. "Daniel, they say cameras capture the soul, but what if something steals it? What if something is watching you, learning you, until one day you see yourself standing where you shouldn't be? And what if it doesn't want to give you back your life?" I always thought I was just paranoid. You know, one of those people who double checks the locks at night, who hears a creak in the floorboards and assumes it's just the house settling. But now, looking back, I know I wasn't paranoid. I was right. Someone was in my house. It all started when my parents left for a weekend trip. I was 17, old enough to take care of myself. They trusted me, and honestly, I was looking forward to having the house to myself. No curfew, no one telling me to turn off the lights. Just me, a pile of snacks, and a list of horror movies to binge. The first night was normal, at least, that's what I told myself. But looking back, I should have paid attention to the little things, like how the back door was unlocked when I swore I had locked it, or how the bathroom mirror had a faint, foggy handprint on it, even though I hadn't taken a shower yet. But I brushed it off. Maybe I left the door unlocked. Maybe the handprint was from earlier. Then I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of faint shuffling. It wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the house. I held my breath, staring at my bedroom door. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest, I thought whoever was out there could hear it. Silence. Maybe I imagined it? I grabbed my phone and checked the cameras my dad had installed in the living room and kitchen. Nothing. Just empty rooms. Still, I felt uneasy. I turned over and tried to go back to sleep, completely unaware that someone was watching me through the attic hatch in my closet. The next morning, I found little things out of place. The cereal box was open, even though I hadn't touched it. A kitchen chair was slightly pulled out from the table. The front door was unlocked. Again, I brushed it off. Maybe I was being careless. Maybe I forgot to lock up. That night, I locked everything twice, checked every window, every door, even my closet, just in case. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of soft breathing. I froze. It wasn't coming from me. It wasn't coming from outside. It was inside my room. I sat up, my eyes darting around the dark room. My closet door was slightly ajar. Hadn't I closed it before bed? My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. I turned on the flashlight, aiming it at the closet. Nothing, just my clothes hanging there, undisturbed. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe I just needed sleep. I shut the door, crawled back into bed, and tried to ignore the fact that I still felt like someone was watching me. The next morning, I found something that made my stomach turn. The fridge door was slightly open. Several things were missing. Some milk, a few slices of bread, and a juice box. I lived alone. No one else should have been eating my food. Dread pulled my stomach. Someone was in my house. I checked every room, every closet. Nothing. Then my eyes landed on something I had ignored before. The attic hatch. It was in my closet, a small wooden door in the ceiling. I had never been up there before. My dad only used it to store old boxes. I grabbed a chair and pushed it beneath the hatch. My heart pounded as I reached up and pushed it open. The attic was dark and cold. The air smelled stale. I climbed up slowly, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. That's when I saw it. A makeshift bed made out of old blankets and a thin, dirty mattress. empty food wrappers scattered across the floor, a knife resting next to the bed. I felt like I was going to throw up. Someone had been living in my attic. For how long? I scrambled down the ladder, heart racing, hands shaking. My phone slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. That's when I heard it. A noise from above, like someone shifting. I looked up just in time to see a face peering down at me from the attic hatch. Pale skin, sunken eyes, greasy, matted hair, and he was smiling. I screamed and ran for the door, but I heard him drop down behind me, footsteps pounding, breath heavy and fast. I barely made it out of my house before I heard his voice. I just wanted to stay a little longer. I didn't stop running, not until I was in my neighbor's house, sobbing and shaking as I told them what happened. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the house, the attic, but he was gone. The only thing they found was his bed and a pile of my missing food. They said he must have escaped before they got there. They never caught him. I never stayed in that house alone again. To this day, I still wonder, how long had he been watching me? How many nights had I slept with him just above me, listening, waiting? And the scariest part, I have no idea where he is now. It started with a sound, a faint, repetitive scratching deep within the walls of my house. At first, I thought it was just rats, but when a note slid under my bedroom door that read, "Stop trying to find me," I realized something much worse was lurking inside my home, and I wasn't alone. I had always been a light sleeper, so when I first heard the scratching sounds, I thought nothing of it. The house I rented was old, built in the late 1950s, and I figured it was just the usual creaks and groans of aging wood. But the noise kept happening. Every night, just past 2 a.m., the sound would return, a slow, deliberate scraping against the walls near my bed, like something or someone was inside. I told myself it had to be rodents. Maybe a raccoon had gotten trapped in the attic, or a rat had burrowed into the drywall. But as the days passed, I noticed something odd. The sound would stop whenever I moved. If I sat up in bed, it went silent. If I walked toward the wall, it ceased entirely. It was almost as if someone was listening. One night, I had enough. I turned on my flashlight and banged my fist against the wall. "Thump! Thump! Go away, you little bastard," I muttered. Silence. Satisfied, I got back under the covers. But then, shirk! The noise came again. This time, closer. I sat up, my heart hammering. It sounded like it was coming from right beside my bed. I turned my head slowly toward the nightstand. My pulse spiked. Something was sticking out from underneath my bedroom door. A piece of paper. With shaking hands, I reached for it, flipping it over. My breath caught in my throat. In crude, jagged letters, it read, "Stop trying to find me." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a prank. Someone was inside my house. I bolted for the door, my hands trembling as I twisted the lock and yanked it open. I expected to see someone standing there, waiting in the darkness. But the hallway was empty. I called 911 immediately. The dispatcher kept me on the line, whispering reassurances while I gripped a kitchen knife, my back pressed against the living room wall. Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed outside my window. The cops arrived in full force, guns drawn, ready for action. They searched the entire house, the attic, basement, closets. Nothing. But then, as one officer inspected my bedroom, he paused. His flashlight hovered over a tiny, barely noticeable slit in the wall. "Hey, Sarge, you see this?" he called out. His partner joined him, and together they pried open a section of the drywall. What we found made my blood run cold. Behind the wall was a hidden crawl space, narrow, dark, and reeking of mildew. The flashlight beams revealed a horrifying sight. Crumpled food wrappers, empty water bottles, a sleeping bag, flattened from use. And worst of all, a hole cut perfectly through the drywall, aligned directly with my bedroom, with a perfect view of my bed. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. Someone had been watching me. Every night, for who knows how long. The cops widened the hole, stepping inside. The space was just big enough for a person to crawl through. It stretched along the length of the house, an entire hidden passageway built into the walls. Then we found something worse. Footprints. Fresh ones. "He's still here," one officer murmured. The police tore through the house, following the crawl space's path. It led to a small, almost unnoticeable door hidden behind a loose panel in the laundry room, and when they opened it, a man bolted. He was filthy. His face gaunt, his skin stretched tight over his bones. His clothes were tattered, his fingernails blackened with dirt. I saw his eyes for just a moment, wild, frenzied, like a cornered animal. The cops tackled him to the ground, pinning his arms behind his back. He screamed, a high-pitched, guttural sound that didn't sound human. As they dragged him outside, I stood frozen, my entire body trembling. That man had been living in my walls, watching me, sneaking out when I left, eating my food, sleeping just feet away from where I lay, completely unaware. And worst of all, he hadn't just been watching, he had been waiting. The police later told me they found a small spiral-bound notebook inside the crawl space. It was filled with notes about me. He moves around at 7:30 a.m., leaves by 8, returns at 6 p.m., showers for 12 minutes, sometimes talks in his sleep, mumbles a lot, page after page of observations, my habits, my schedule, everything. And on the last page, scrawled in shaking handwriting, were the words, "I watch because I love you." I had never seen this man before in my life. After the arrest, I packed my things and left that house. I never went back. The landlord later told me something chilling. The man had been squatting in the crawl space for years, possibly before I even moved in. To this day, I still get paranoid. I check my vents, my walls, my attic. I never sleep without locking my door. Because now I know, sometimes the things that go bump in the night aren't rats. They're watching. They're waiting. And they might still be inside the walls.